When did you first fall in love with music?
Oh, very young, very young. Actually, I do remember. I mean, this is my parents telling me because I don't remember actually. Already very small. The only time when I was showing some sign of life was with music, when I was listening to music, and then somebody gave me one of these piano toys. And I started to just really be interested. Don't think that I was Mozart. I started to play. No, I wasn't. But this is how it started, because my family was not a musical family. My parents knew nothing about music, and this is how it started. And then they sent me to some lessons, and from there it started. So my interest in music, in the world of sounds, let's say, has been since a very early age.
Who were your early influences when you were growing up?
Well, I've been lucky living in Milan and growing up in Milan. During I started to be understanding something about music when I was about 13, 14, 15. So that was the 70s and the 80s. When in Milan there was a real, very thriving musical activities. At the time, there were 4 orchestras. And not anymore else, but of course there was La Scala, but there was the Orchestra of the Rai, that is the correspondent of the BBC, no? Mm-hmm. And so I was going to concerts, to chamber music, to opera almost every evening. Really, I grew up with that because it was very accessible and was very high quality. So I basically saw everybody that at the time was performing in the music world was passing through Milan. And I even saw Kleiber conducting many times. That for me, that was the peak. But I think that in a way, the person, the musician that was more influential, more formative for me in that years was Claudio Abbado, because he was the music director of La Scala. And I have to say, after him, not after, under him, when he was music director, every evening there were great singers, great producers, great conductors, and similarly, the Orchestra of the Rai was doing great programs, so I've been very lucky in this, because I've been exposed to a lot of music.
Mm-hmm. What's your most memorable experience of a performance, good or bad?
Well, there's been many good performances, and I don't want to single out one or the other. But for me, the good performances are when you feel, everybody is on the same wavelength, including the public. That are wonderful things, because it's something that the performers, not just me, but everybody feels. We perform for a public, and the public is greatly important in the way that the performance goes. In a way, with a very, you can almost feel when the public is there for you and is captivated by what we do. We give our best, absolutely. So it's a two-way thing. So this is when the performances are good. If you're talking about accidents, yes, there have been many.
Tell me.
Many. Well, from the time when there was, it was very young, and I was conducting a young orchestra, and we were performing open air in Italy in the summer. And don't remember if it was the oboe or the clarinet. Just before solo, he took a breath, and the fly went to his mouth.
Oh no!
And they started and gave the instrument to the second guy. That what? And, pee pee pee. And they started to play, and it was obviously, of course, everybody was laughing. And then, there has been another one that I remember that was really, now funny, not at the time. I was conducting the Symphonie Fantastique, And we arrive at the last moment, the fifth movement, the great moment when there are the offstage bells, you know, pom, pom, pom. Great. So we start ton, ton, ton. First time ton, ton, tir, 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 pom, 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 crack. The second bell completely split. Was a real bell.
Yes.
And at that point, you know, there is nothing else. You know, the bells are always on. You know, and then you hear the ding, tang. So the orchestra started laughing. I started to laugh. The public started laughing, but we went on. This was a very good moment. Then another time, well, in opera sometimes things happen. Like once I was conducting and the curtain didn't go up. So I didn't know what to do. I just stopped because I have to stop. And so I turned and said, "I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have a technical problem." And then the stage manager came out and said, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry. During the interval, the curtain has been inadvertently nailed to the floor." So there was a curtain that was going up. I think they put some pieces of scenery, you know, just above with the curtain. And anyway, of course, what happened was that then we started again. The curtain went up, and you know, to the most roaring applause of the audience. Bro!
Yeah.
Okay. So you know, there are many things. At the time, it's not so funny, but then when you think about it, it's actually very funny.
When you're not on stage performing and when you're not traveling, how do you switch off? Do you have any guilty pleasures?
Oh, look, switching off is not something that musicians do. Maybe they can not have a score open in front of them or not practice, but the music is always here. That never goes away. But guilty pleasure, no. I think well-deserved pleasure, yes. I like actually very much the countryside. So particularly when I am in my house in Italy, in Umbria, you know, with my wife we walk a lot, and I like reading, and that is something that I would like to do more, but rather than reading scores all the time. So very, very simple. I actually like to do some work with the wood, some carpentry work, very, very small, just for me. I hide in my garage in Italy, but even then I think about music. And of course, particularly when I'm in Italy, I'm alas food. It's wonderful.
So music is both work and pleasure for you?
Oh, definitely. That must be. And it should be for every performer. And when that stopped to be, is a very sad state of affair, because we are actually lucky. You know, everybody, I mean almost everybody, I guess there are some cases of people that became musicians just because they were pushed by the parents and they wanted to do something completely different. But the vast majority of the people that are in the arts are there because they wanted to do it. And I think we should not lose track of this. We are lucky because we do the job that we want to do. That doesn't mean necessarily that everything is, you know, rose and flowers. There are many problems, you know, from logistic problems, financial problems, because obviously music, classical music particularly, is very expensive. So somebody needs to get the money for that. So I'm not saying, don't want to paint a rose picture, but you know, we are lucky generally, we do what we wanted to do.